Good afternoon, Chamber members. For those of you that I have not met yet, my name is Angie Talent. I'm the 2021 Board Chair of the Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to take a moment, as we do each week, to thank our executive partners whose logos you saw on the screen before we began our program today. These businesses provide the foundation that makes our work possible here at the Fairbanks Chamber. These businesses also support the Chamber by sharing knowledge and experience that help shape our advocacy efforts and create awareness that drives economic strength for the interior of Alaska. You can see our executive partners on the screen, and the full list can be found on our website. And now I'd like to take a moment to welcome Katie Yarrow to help us recognize our new and our renewing members. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Angie, and welcome community and chamber members. Thank you for joining us today. We are pleased to welcome our newest member, DRG Meats Alaska, also known as Arby's. Arby's is located on Airport Way, and they celebrated their grand opening this past month. The Arby's brand strives to inspire smiles through delicious experiences since 1964. Welcome to Fairbanks and welcome to the Chamber. Thank you also to the following renewing members these past couple weeks: Hattie LLC and the Literacy Council of Alaska. Also, a huge thank you to our members who joined our 110% Club these past couple weeks, and they are AT&S Inc., Fairbanks Native Association, Fidelity Title Agency of Alaska, Firehouse Subs, G2 Diversified Services, Kevin McKinley, the Odom Corporation, and Steve M. Thompson. These members contribute above and beyond their membership dues to help us with our advocacy actions, and we are very grateful. Thank you again to all of our new and renewing members, and thank you all for your continued support of the Fairbanks Chamber and our advocacy actions for the interior of Alaska. Back to you, Angie.
Thanks, Katie. So now for my board chair report. Our board of directors held a special meeting last week to consider our position on the state's budget. Our government relations committee members laid the groundwork for this discussion, which focused on the potential impacts of altering the chamber's long-standing position on the need for a long-term sustainable fiscal plan for the state of Alaska. The GRC will continue to monitor this issue as the legislature holds a special session in August. We will report back to our membership if we identify any developments which could negatively impact the business environment in the interior of Alaska. Also this week, we kicked off planning for our fall political forums. In case you haven't attended before, the Chamber's political forums are an opportunity to introduce candidates for local office to our members and community. We prepare a series of questions based on our advocacy agenda and requests from our members. So my question for you today is, what would you like the Chamber to ask the candidates for City Council, Borough Assembly, or Borough Mayor? So if you could please share your questions with Suzanne, our advocacy coordinator, for consideration, or reach out to any of the Chamber staff if you have any questions. And next, I would like to welcome Janelle for her President and CEO report.
Okay, thanks, Angie. Well, Fairbanks, I have a couple of important things to talk to you about today. It is almost time to dream golden dreams. That is going to be next week, and your Chamber team is gearing up for the Golden Days celebrations. They are going to kick off officially this weekend on July 17th. So tomorrow, for starters, we'll be drawing the early bird winner. One lucky yellow ticket holder will be $1,500 richer thanks to Mac Federal Credit Union. Be sure to tune in on our Facebook page at noon tomorrow to watch the drawing live. All yellow tickets purchased through the end of the day yesterday will be entered into that drawing. If you're not in that early bird drawing, don't despair though. You can still win up to $15,000 on race day, as well as a variety of other fun prizes. Tickets are available at any Sunrise Bagel and Espresso location, Mac Federal Credit Union, or any of our other ticket vendor locations. A full list can be found on our website as well as on our Facebook page. Also, you can join us next week in person. You heard that right, in person, at the Salmon Bake next Tuesday from noon to 1 p.m. for the annual Golden Days Luncheon. We'll hear an update on Alaska's mining industry, followed by some fun Golden Days themed activities that they have planned for us. Registration for the lunch is live on our website, so be sure to reserve your spot today. We are still also accepting applications for the street fair and the Grand Reverse Parade. but your time is running out. So be sure to get your application in by this Friday, July 16th at 5 p.m. so we can be sure to get you in a choice spot so you can participate in either the parade or the street fair. The Kinross Fort Knox Grand Reverse Parade will be Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's Saturday, July 24th at the Tanana Valley Fairgrounds. And the Foundation Health Partners Street Fair will be from 12 to 7 p.m. on that same day in the Golden Heart of Fairbanks. So we've got other things planned as well. We've got the Poke of Gold. We've got all sorts of stuff going on for that week. So definitely be sure to check out all of that information on our website, which is fairbankschamber.org. All right, back to you, Angie.
And now for our main presentation. Today we'll be hearing an update from Shelley Wade, owner of Agnew Beck Consulting with the borough's new comprehensive economic development strategy. And now I'm going to welcome a special guest, our borough mayor, Bryce Ward, to introduce today's speaker. So welcome, Mayor Ward, and thank you, Bryce and Shelley, for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, Angie. And couldn't find my mute button there. So that's my strike one for today. So today, it is my privilege to introduce the special guest for the chamber, Shelley Wade. Shelley is the principal and owner of Agnew Beck Consulting and is a long time familiar person with Fairbanks. So has graduated here from our local schools and our university, has grown up in this community, known Fairbanks inside and out, and is coming to us today as giving a presentation on the update for the CEDS. So Shelley comes to this strange land as no stranger, as I mentioned, and we're very excited to have her on board as the contractor for the CEDS. She's also done a lot of really important work around the state of Alaska, but here locally has worked on the Regional Growth Plan, Salcha Badger Plan, the North Pole Strategic Plan, and is actually working on other projects that we're doing out in the community right now. So as I mentioned, it is my privilege, and I'm extremely excited to hear from Shelley today on the work that we're doing with the CEDS, which sounds super exciting, I know, and Shelley will take you into the world of CEDS. Shelley, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mayor Ward, and thank you, chamber members. Feel very honored for the opportunity to present to you today, and really wish that I was sitting there with you in person or standing there in person with you in Fairbanks, which would be much more fabulous and glorious. But super honored for the opportunity today, and definitely have some highlights about chances and opportunities to meet you in person and really do some in-person activities. So I am going to start a presentation here for you and share some slides and kind of guide us through this dialogue and conversation, and definitely look forward to an interactive opportunity, if not today, certainly moving forward. And I know some of you folks have participated already in some of the events that we've organized. So as Mayor Ward mentioned, we are here to share with you an update on the borough's comprehensive economic development strategy. And we just really want to say very strongly that this process and this product is really about developing a stronger, a thriving, and a more resilient Fairbanks North Star borough, and really interior Alaska economy. So just as a little form of introduction, we've talked a little bit about ourselves, and joining on, I believe that you can see her. I'm not sure exactly what the setup looks like, but Brittany Smart with the Mayor's Office is our project manager and our boss for this effort, along with Mayor Ward. And as mentioned, I'm one of the principal owners for Agnew Beck Consulting, and we live and work on the land of the Dena'ina, but certainly have the opportunity to work across the state in the same capacity, so assisting communities all over, and not just Alaska, also in the lower 48, with really developing visions, developing plans, and really implementing those plans to help you achieve your vision. So I'm also really excited to share that we have some supporting team members, folks that are based out of Fairbanks and Anchorage. Our friends from Northern Economics are on board, helping us do the economic analysis part of this work. Also our friends from Information Insights that are based there in Fairbanks, and PDC, also based in Fairbanks. So excited to have this full team and complement of experts that are assisting the borough with this really critical effort. So just to take a step back a little bit and talk about really the purpose of the project. So just going back in time a little bit, the borough does actually have a 2016 comprehensive economic development strategy, and there are several others that have preceded that 2016 version. And this process and the purpose of this project is really to develop an updated 5-year CEDS. So you're going to hear me use that short phrase for referring to the comprehensive economic development strategy. So the CEDS really is required, and again, typically these projects are funded through the Economic Development Administration. In this case, the borough has self-funded this effort, but nonetheless, there's really a recommendation that the CEDS go through a robust update every 5 years. And that's the process that we're in now and that we've initiated now. And then there are certainly annual updates or shorter, less intense updates that happen every year. So just a little bit more about the purpose of the CEDS. So this is really about, locally driven, regionally driven economic development planning. And this planning helps to set the stage and create this roadmap for economic resilience and prosperity. And we're going to continue to talk about what those mean and how those are defined. But it's really a guide for not just the borough, but all of you folks, all of our business partners and business leaders and industry leaders, as well as those other regional and interior friends and partners that have an interest and a vested interest in really the success of the interior and the success of the borough. So again, this is really that roadmap and that way to get us to where you want to be, not just 5 years from now, but beyond that. So what specifically does a CEDS do? So I've mentioned just a little bit that it is that opportunity for not just the public sector, but collectively the public, private sector, and other partners to come together to really develop a regional strategy. So this is a strategy that doesn't just benefit one sector or one municipality. This really has the benefit of being a regional strategy. And then I think very important is the action plan part of that. So we've talked a little bit about the roadmap and how this, through the action plan, the CEDS process, through an action plan really helps us and provides that roadmap for getting us to really that vision, the place that you want to be in the future. And more specifically, and I think this is where maybe your eyes open a little wider and your ears perk up, is this process is really the opportunity to identify projects, so very specific projects, and make recommendations that help to secure and support businesses, to really create more and better paying jobs, improve overall quality of life, and then just tying back to that opportunity to increase resilience to changes and threats like we've all experienced the last 18 months or so with the pandemic. So, ideally, this document and this process helps develop connections and relationships and ultimately a plan and that roadmap for times when significant events like the pandemic happen. What plans do we have in place, or what actions do we have in place to adapt and be able to adjust in a really nimble way to those kinds of shifts? So the CEDS does include some very specific components, and as I've been talking about the roadmap part of this, in addition to that roadmap is this opportunity to really tell the story of the borough and really the interior economy. So that's by sharing important information about the people, about the demographics of the borough and of the interior, and then also things that are really important for us to know about economic indicators. So what is happening with the job market? What is happening with income? What is happening with our local businesses? What is happening in terms of revenue coming in or out of the borough or the interior? So that numbers piece is really critical to setting the stage for us and better understanding what's happening, not just today and what has happened, but what we can project to the best of our ability about what to anticipate and what we should plan for moving forward. Related to that, the forward part of that is, of course, an economic vision. So that vision should really set the stage for, here's the big direction that we want to go. So this is our desired future state. This is what we want our economy to look like, if that's a focus on an Arctic strategy, or if that's a focus on a combination of an Arctic strategy and visitor industry pieces. What does that composition of your future economy look like? So that is a critical and key piece, because setting that vision is really helpful in helping us do other pieces of the roadmap. But equally important is sort of the phase that we're at in the process right now, and that is developing something that we call a SWOT analysis and a situational assessment. So an easy way to think about this, and that SWOT means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's essentially what are the contributing factors to the economic success of the borough, of the interior, and what are those things that are real barriers to that success, whether those are sort of internal factors or those are external things that are kind of beyond our control, but we should certainly factor those in as we think about the economic future of the borough and the interior. And then, as I mentioned, the roadmap. The other piece of that roadmap, in addition to the vision that sets the big ultimate goal for the future, are those very specific 5-year goals, objectives, and strategies that tell us kind of how are we going to work together as regional partners to really get to where we want to go in the future. And that includes, of course, an implementation plan with some really clear actions on how we're going to work on those priorities and how we're going to measure success or measure our progress towards that vision. So currently we're working with, of course, the borough and all of the other partners that we've connected with thus far to identify some potential CEDS topics or sectors, if you will. And currently those are sort of identified in 2 separate buckets that you can see on the screen here. The first in that left-hand column are the industry clusters, and those are really key sectors that drive the Fairbanks North Star borough or the interior economy. So you can see that preliminary list that we have here, and probably nothing really surprising to you there in terms of those key sectors that are really doing and bringing in that outside revenue into the interior. But equally important, and we cannot forget them or dismiss them from this conversation, because it's absolutely critical that we understand the community influencers. So those are the things in the right-hand column, and those are really the supportive foundations or those pieces that the clusters or the key sectors in the left-hand column, they really rely on those to grow and flourish. So again, probably nothing surprising to you, but really critical in terms of providing that infrastructure and really those key foundational pieces to help us grow the energy sector, help us grow the mining sector, help us grow the military sector. You need to have these other pieces in place. Certainly, as you folks may know, we've been talking a lot about housing and incoming F-35 families. And so you can see very clearly how it's really critical that that stuff in the right-hand column be well developed and considered and prioritized actions to help us achieve success in that left-hand column. So just a little bit about how does the CEDS benefit industry. So we wanted to share specifically that by sector, we will be developing dedicated one-pager pieces of the CEDS. And so those will essentially be tailored snapshots that include sort of that SWOT for the sector, but also goals, strategies, and implementation actions for the sector. So you could take that if you're a visitor industry person, a mining industry person, energy person, military person, you could take that one-pager with you to be able to have conversations with other partners. And that's really the next 2 bullets is that really provides articulated economic development and vision and goals for sectors, but also for consumers and government, but it positions industry and the community for funding and investment opportunities. So we are looking to use this document and the outcomes and the deliverables from this process to really have conversations with folks that want to make an investment and could and should make an investment in the interior. And then really ultimately, you know, this document is a process of really holding everybody accountable by having really measurable short and longer term targets and ways to track and communicate progress. And so doing that and bringing ourselves together in multiple ways that I'm going to share with you, this process, this document really sets us up for success in that way. And so you're able to talk cross-sector about who's doing what and how we can work together to really achieve our targets. So there are a couple of exciting things that are in development right now, and I just wanted to feature one of those today, which is the Regional Economic Snapshot. And I've got a quick sneak peek here at the front and the back of that one-pager. And really what that does and will do, and we'll be sharing this with folks broadly here fairly soon, is it gives us that sneak peek at some of the components of the CEDS. So for example, it tells us what does the borough look like today. It tells that story of the borough's population and the borough's economy, what really stands out in terms of the location, the economic strengths, and the employment, and what do we know about some of the challenges like the cost of living. We also want to share with folks, you know, what factors are really impacting the borough economy. So again, we know that those incoming military families, what's happening, we just heard about the state budget when Angie opened our conversation today, how those state finances and that planning can really impact the interior, and things like the pandemic and certainly how the population has shifted. And then also you can see here where, again, want to educate folks about the clusters and the influencer components of the CEDS. And then the back portion of this regional economic snapshot that we'd really be excited for any of you to share with your partners and folks in your sectors and your colleagues, really just about the purpose and the timeline for the CEDS. So I'm going to switch gears here and talk a little bit about that and do that in the context of some of the public involvement efforts that we have happening that I think is really exciting to share with the Chamber as key leaders and business leaders in the Fairbanks North Star Borough community. So I'll start that just by sharing that we have an overall project schedule, and really the final CEDS is slated for completion in June of next year of 2022. So a little short of a year from now, and maybe just a little beyond that, is the actual adoption of the CEDS by the Borough Assembly. But along the way are many opportunities for public involvement and engagement from the business community. And that is really, those opportunities are listed in the left-hand column here on the screen, and that includes interviews, interactive discussions, community events, the kind of community discussions I'm going to talk about in just a moment. An economic summit, I'll talk about that in just a moment. And then certainly through any kind of electronic correspondence or radio or news that we can get the word out. And of course, events like this where we have the chance to talk with the Chamber and Chamber members directly and to get your input. But you can see on the very bottom is the key phases of the CEDS development, and that includes really developing that draft vision and goals later this year, an economic summit in January, and then a public review draft in the spring of next year as we work towards finalizing the CEDS. So it's really critical. This is definitely not comprehensive, but wanted to share with you all that our target audiences are really essentially anyone and everyone in the Fairbanks North Star Borough, but certainly we recognize that we want to focus and we want to have conversations with industry leaders and with business leaders as a part of these target audiences. So you can see just a quick snapshot of who within the community, certainly regional businesses and organizations and local businesses and organizations, and then state and federal partners that are key to the success of this plan. So just a little bit more in detail on a few of the public involvement strategies. So we've launched a project website. I'll share that with you when we get towards the end of the presentation. But we've also really had a chance already to talk with industry leaders. So those folks that are in those key sectors that I shared earlier, we've started some initial interviews with some of those folks. We are also conducting interviews with the Economic Development Commission. I did fail to mention that a key piece of this work is the guidance and the advice and the recommendations that we receive from the Economic Development Commission as really sort of the borough's Economic Development Commission as the key advisory group that's helping to guide this process. And then the interactive presentations you can see in the lower right-hand column are things like, that was me presenting at the Greater Fairbanks Board of Realtors for the Eielson Regional Growth Plan several years ago, but we hope for more of those in-person opportunities and presentations where face-to-face we can get some feedback from folks. And then we've also done, this is really exciting, I think, as a part of this process, and I would like to credit the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation with that partnership and their participation, helping us to organize roundtables with sector leaders, including so far folks that represent the energy sector, mining sector, and agriculture sector. And we'll continue to work our way through that list of kind of key sectors to have those industry leaders come together and have a conversation about what, from their perspective, are the opportunities and what are some of those real barriers to economic development growth or growth within their sectors. And then we also did have a great meeting. The Explore Fairbanks folks had their annual meeting, and it was a board and staff retreat, and we had an opportunity to really ask the same questions of the visitor industry leaders at that meeting, and that kicked us off on our interactive presentations. And so to continue to do a little bit more of a deeper dive in terms of our public involvement strategies, because I really wanted to be sure to highlight the economic summit there in the center, but certainly another part of our process is really community open houses. And we have several events that we're also doing throughout the summer, including we were just at the Midnight Sun Festival and we set up a booth there, and we got a lot of great resident and visitor feedback on what do you like most or value most about living in the interior in the borough, and what makes it challenging to live here. And so we got responses from small humans, small residents, to some of our older residents that have been in the community all of their lives. So have gotten a lot of great feedback there. All of this feedback will take us to these community open houses that we have slated for the fall of this year. That'll be an opportunity to really say, hey folks, here's what we're hearing so far about what makes it difficult to do economic development or grow a business or start a new business. And here are the things that really have been valuable or new opportunities that we should really take advantage of. And so we have a chance to do that community-wide this fall. But really exciting, I wanted to share with you today is this opportunity for the Economic Summit, and that's in early 2022. I mentioned earlier, January, February timeframe. This is slated as a 2 to 3 day event to really bring all of our leaders, regional leaders, sector-specific leaders together to have focused conversations about what is emerging as economic development priorities within each of the sectors, and then really collectively as a region or as a borough. So please stay tuned for more information on that. We'll be building on everything that we've learned over the last several months to be able to bring together some preliminary ideas and get feedback at the Economic Summit. And that is planned for an in-day event currently. And then I just wanted to mention also work sessions that we are doing, of course, with the Economic Development Commission, and then also the Planning Commission, the Assembly, when that opportunity does present itself. Some other upcoming activities, I mentioned we've done the Midnight Sun Festival. We are also planning to have a booth at Golden Days, so exciting for Janelle's announcement on that, and very excited to have the opportunity there to once again get additional feedback on what's so valuable, what do you value about living in the interior, and what are some of those things that can make it challenging, and specifically challenging for business or the business community. On July 30th and really through the 8th, we have an opportunity to set up at the state fair. And so we're working in partnership with many of the other projects that are happening in the borough to set up kind of a borough booth and really highlight not just the CEDS, but a number of other projects. But that's another opportunity for tremendous feedback. And then we have slated for August 10th, a Planning Commission work session. And then many other along the way, roundtable and sector-specific conversations that we would like to have with folks that we've not yet touched base with. So I think hopefully folks are getting the sense that we are really trying to intersect where the community and where business leaders are already gathering, like this chamber luncheon today, and any other place where folks typically gather, but then also setting up some specific times and special times to talk with industry leaders. So there's a couple of questions that we wanted to share with you today. This picture I just wanted to mention is from the Midnight Sun Festival booth, where we had folks saying, what do you value most about living in the Fairbanks North Star Borough? And you can see things like wildlife and view trails and summers, and it's not too crowded, and we have a great school system and great community events. So we got a lot of good feedback there, including feedback from our young residents, as you can see there. But two big questions that we'd be very excited to hear from you about are, what are some of the biggest opportunities for business growth and development in the borough or in interior Alaska? And then in contrast, what for you are some of the biggest barriers to business growth and development? So we're really curious to hear that from you as business leaders, as industry leaders, sector leaders, as we develop this economic development strategy. What are the things that we should be considering and opportunities we should take advantage of? To this end, I'll just mention a couple more things and wrap up. The first of which is just in addition to understanding those potential priority projects, we've also included as a part of this effort really doing an economic analysis of those priority projects. So whatever sort of rises to the top as, you know, things or projects or strategies that have been greatly supported by the community, by the business community, by industry leaders, we really want to test those to best understand, well, if we really invest in this, how much potential, you know, how many potential jobs, how much business growth, how much revenue may be associated with this potential project. And that's really a part of this analysis in this effort as well. So we're really adding value to this process to go beyond simply identifying strategies or projects. And then lastly, and I'll just say that if you're able to write something in a chat, that's great. If you can reach out to us and share your responses to these questions, that's great too. I'm going to share our contact information so you have a chance to see that. So you can certainly learn more on our website, FNSB CEDS.com. So there's a lot of information there, similar information posted there, as well as the opportunity to send direct comments through the website or to sign up for project updates. We're doing maybe 5 or 6 updates throughout the life of the project and would love to hear from you. And then, as I mentioned, just a last little plug here. We are working on a roads plan project with the borough. There's an open house this Thursday. That is a virtual open house. We would love to have you come join us. There are 2 options to join. More information on fnsbroadsplan.com. And there's also a survey associated with that. So you care about your local roads, your neighborhood roads, future roads, issues with current roads. We'd love to hear from you. And then very, very exciting, we just did a pre-kickoff meeting last week. We have another kickoff meeting really with the Planning Commission on August 10th, and that's the Fairbanks Downtown Plan. Some of you have probably been involved in efforts to develop the plan in the past. Exciting, we're really gearing up and ready to launch this and really connect it to this CEDS effort. So we're not duplicating efforts, we're really dialing into the strength and the opportunity that lies within the downtown area. to really create a strong economic development component of the downtown plan. And then last but not least, there's also the Trails Plan that's happening and the Pioneer Park Master Plan that's happening. So Brittany's contact information, my contact information, we're very excited to hear from you, get your answers to those questions about opportunities and barriers or anything else that you would like to ask of our team. Excited to hear from you. Thank you, and if there are any questions, excited to take those if there's still time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Yeah, we definitely do have time for some questions, and I received some ahead of time and some are coming through the chat, so I'll kind of try to organize them in some sort of logical fashion for you here. So maybe to start kind of at the beginning, so the CEDS, how much of the information you're using or the recommendations are going to be based upon continuation of ideas that were from previous versions of the CEDS, and how much are going to be, you know, envisioning brand new solutions or bringing in new ideas as opposed to iterations?
That's a great question. So our starting point is, as with really any planning effort, is the 2016 CEDS. So that is a starting point, and actually to that end, we used some goals and the strategies, and I think they were called tasks within the 2016 plan. We really used those as a starting point for the conversations with sectors. So with the energy group, for example, we put in front of them, here's what the 2016 CEDS says in terms of potential projects or strategies or tasks. What do you think about these? Do these still resonate? What's missing? And then I think equally important, in addition to what was there in the 2016 CEDS in the form of strategies and actions or tasks, is any additional economic data that we have learned or that we have gathered since that time. So 5 years ago, the landscape looked a little bit different. What has changed since then? Those are also key factors that will come into play. And then I should just mention any other plan that the borough has, including the comprehensive plan or any other work that's happening, the other plans that I shared earlier, those are also real considerations. So I think we are definitely not starting from scratch. It is really critical that we start with existing work, existing plans. That's knowing the blood, sweat, and tears that went into all of those previous and current planning documents. It's really critical that we start there, because each of those processes also had some kind of public input, and we don't want to ignore that or not recognize that work.
And I definitely know if you ask a room full of people, what are your ideas for this, and you don't give them a few seed ideas or prime the pump a little, it can be hard to just come up with things out of thin air. So I could see that also being useful to base it on the work that was done in the past. So kind of tagging on to that, what portion of the inputs that you're using for this planning process will come from stakeholder direct conversation type of input, and how much of it is going to be more statistical data like census data or, you know, economic statistics that might be out there?
Yeah, it's really a combination, as I just mentioned, it's really a combination of both of those things. And I might just click us back to this slide that shows kind of the overarching schedule and each of the components. So you'll see that we actually developed a separate public involvement plan for this effort, because the public involvement piece is an absolute priority, and the importance of the data. So what we know about the data. So that certainly is, both of those are equally important pieces. But what I will say about the data and that information is, as we develop updated information on what we know about the Fairbanks economy and the Fairbanks population, I should say interior economy, interior population, that we have a chance to actually sit down with sector leaders, with borough or municipal leaders, and have a chance to talk about those numbers. So learn the story behind those numbers and there might be some questions that we have, or even that the team has, about why we see an uptick in a certain jobs, certain number of jobs in a specific sector over the last 5 years. That's really an opportunity for a conversation to say, let's look and peel back the layers here and look behind the scenes and understand what folks that are on the ground, what folks that are very intimately familiar with these sectors, what they know that could contribute to our understanding of why things have shifted in one direction or the other. So I think they're really important to really work in concert with one another to be able to develop really informed goals and strategies. Great question.
Yeah, when I think your answer actually responded to another of the questions that had come up about, for example, census data was fairly difficult to get in 2020. There were a lot of challenges to that process. So I think maybe it's using both, right? The statistics, but then what do they really tell us and what really went into making those statistics? Okay.
Certainly.
Okay, and you've talked in various ways about the some of what you have on the screen there, the stakeholder interviews, their interactive discussions that are part of this overall project timeline. So I think the answer might be different depending on which piece of that we're talking about, but how are the participants selected for those different inputs? Are some of them invite only? Are some of them anyone who knows about it can participate? How are those things, how are the participants selected?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's a combination of really we're working with the Economic Development Commission, of course, Mayor Ward and Brittany to help identify some of the key players in the key sectors. And then, as is really common, working with folks that are industry leaders themselves to ask the question of who else should be involved in this conversation. And so it is definitely a continuous growing list of folks that are either invited to come to a specific conversation or invited to participate in an interview. But then I would say that anyone and everyone is welcome to provide input at any point in the process. So that is really hopefully the message that we want to share today, that if you're a person that hasn't received a request for an interview, or if you haven't been invited to a sector-specific conversation, then we certainly want to hear from you. And so hopefully I'll flash up our contact information again at the end. But really that process of selecting individuals has been really this team collaborative process of working with certainly borough staff, borough leadership, also municipal staff and leadership, and business leaders and sector leadership to best understand who should we be talking to and who's not here that really should be part of the process. Okay,
and so again, kind of a nuance sort of that, what you were just talking about. So the Economic Summit was one that was specifically mentioned in the chat about, if people are interested in participating in that, what's the core purpose of it? How are those specific participants selected? Is it going to be something that happens in Fairbanks?
Great question. So I think some of the details, we're still working as a team to think through the process, but the vision is that it would be, and certainly we know that as a community that business leaders and others and municipal leaders have come together very similarly. And so I think the idea that we're inclusive as possible, I think would be a real priority. The core purpose as envisioned currently is that leading up to the Economic Summit at the beginning of 2022, we will have had so much input in the form of interviews and sector-specific conversations or roundtables or presentations like this, or individuals just calling us or sharing their ideas, the community open houses, whatever it is. We will, and then of course our other work in terms of the economic data and the statistical analysis that you're referring to earlier, Janelle, all of that work will culminate in an early understanding of what we see as the SWOT, So what people have said about like either internal or external contributors or barriers to economic success, but also priorities. So what we would imagine is, I'll just take the mining sector, for example. There may be, one or two key projects that sort of risen to the top for the mining sector. So we want to really be sure that we have those mining partners and industry leaders in the room together to be able to reflect with one another, but also across sectors. So all of those different sector and business partners are able to see everything together. And I'll just also include like small business leaders and really anyone. So I feel like that invitation is fairly open as we sit here in July of 2021 today, but it will certainly be evolving, and we'll certainly be sharing and communicating regularly what the plan is. So I'm really excited that folks are asking specific questions right now and that there's interest. That's really bodes well for the process.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think you'll have some takers who are listening in today online.
Awesome.
Yeah, so and kind of going in a different direction with the next one, thinking about the outcomes of all this process. So we've just gone through a particularly rough year economically, obviously, and we're hoping not to face such a dramatic situation again in the future, but obviously the economy has ups and downs, and there are a lot of factors that go into that. So will the CEDS address specific strategies to implement if a future, maybe less dramatic economic downturn did happen? I mean, are there things, not just how can we go up from where we are now, but how can we address challenges that might come up in the future?
Yeah, that is an awesome question. So I should just mention too that the borough initiated and developed this, economic recovery and resiliency plan. And so and I should have linked everybody to that website as well. Well, there's an opportunity to kind of track through a dashboard, really the shifts in the economy post-pandemic. And so all of us, I think, are tracking that and need to consider that as we look to the future. And as we look to the future, we develop strategies and opportunities that have that level of resilience and can respond and adapt to a potential future pandemic, for example. And really, this puts these processes to the ultimate test because, certainly Fairbanks and Alaska we are not, the idea of economic adaptation and uncertainty is not new to us as a state. And so this is the opportunity through the CEDS to think about like an economic portfolio for the Fairbanks North Star Borough and the interior that is not overly reliant on one sector or another, that does consider adaptations for something where your lumber supply would dramatically increase like 300-fold or whatever the case, overnight, making it really challenging to do any kind of development or construction. So I think those are certainly the kinds of questions that's going to put all of us to the test as we think about potential strategies. And certainly we're looking, not just in Fairbanks in the interior, but we're looking across the state and other places to really look at how other communities have handled, those kinds of big, what we call disruptions to the economy. We're all experiencing this one, so that's sort of the benefit of this process right now, is that we can learn from what others are doing to respond as well. So yeah, certainly building those strategies, that will be a consideration, that those strategies can adapt and withstand and help the borough and the interior economy withstand those kind of big disruptions.
Okay, makes sense. And I do see that Brittany has her virtual hand raised, so I wasn't sure if you had a comment you wanted to make.
Yes, thank you, Janelle. I just wanted to expand on what Shelley was saying, is that a required component for a CEDS by the Economic Development Administration at the federal level is to have a section on resiliency, economic resiliency. So that is a required thing that we have to look at. Historically, it has really been focused on recovery from natural disasters, which what we just experienced is a little bit different than that, but it does require you to take a look at what are you going to do on an economic basis to help recover from just disasters in general. We also have another tool with our hazard mitigation plan that's through FEMA that also addresses economic recovery. So there are two ways that we look at economic recovery from disasters. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks for tagging on there. I think we'll just take maybe one more question that did come in, and I'm going to paraphrase a little, I think. So you had mentioned, I believe, on one of the slides, quality of life and the atmosphere here in the interior, not just economic factors, but other factors would play into this as well. And someone had asked about climate action or culture issues. I'm assuming those would come under that category, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to maybe comment on how some of those not strictly economic factors might play into it.
That's a great question. And I think that's correct. Whoever said, does it include kind of this, and this? And that's right. So I'm going to try to find that quickly for you all. Yeah, so you can see we have as community influencers, quality of life. And I think it's really fair to put things like the culture and entertainment, access to those opportunities, certainly climate change related factors, and parks and recreation. So you guys are in the process, the borough's in the process of updating their trails plan, also updating the Pioneer Park Master Plan as just one example. So I do think those are the rest of the things that make for a quality of life that's a positive one, that really hits all of the other factors that are not covered in other key infrastructure or governmental functions or workforce development functions. So I think that's correct to think that that's a sort of an umbrella for a number of different related pieces.
Okay, makes sense to me. All right, well, I think that's all we're going to do in terms of questions. I did want to just give you the chance if there was one parting thought that you wanted to leave us with before we close out.
I think the parting thought is that we'd really love your responses to these questions. Biggest opportunities and biggest barriers to business growth and development. And we would love for you to share those with us directly. And here is our contact information. And I am always happy to have folks call or text me. So I just more than anything want to open the door and very much invite all of you to heartily participate in this process. If you've not already started to contribute your ideas, please do that at any time. There's no magical time for you to do that. Now is the right time. So we'd be very excited to hear from you. And I just wanted to say again, I'm very honored to be able to work on this project for my hometown. I'm a North Pole girl, excited to always continue to stay engaged with Fairbanks and with the borough and with the interior. So we're excited to be working on this and excited to hear from folks. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, well, we're definitely always happy to provide opportunities for dialogue where it's needed. So thanks again, Shelley, for presenting today. Thank you also to Mayor Ward and Brittany Smart for helping us make this available to our community. And thanks for everyone online who tuned in. We appreciate you showing an interest in the future of our community and staying informed on the issues. That's definitely something that is important to us here at the Fairbanks Chamber. All right, so we hope to see you all in person next week at the Alaska Salmon Bake for our annual Golden Days Luncheon. It's back in action after a short hiatus last year, so don't forget to pre-register to secure your spot. Thank you, Fairbanks, and we will see you next week.